A week after his TV return and 24 hours after his first pay-per-view match in over 5 months against Lex Luger at Super Brawl that also saw Sting making his return alongside Hogan against Luger and Flair, Hogan, who was off television during the Russo-Ferrara regime with a plan to return with a different edge and a revamped character, was now back full-time as a babyface on WCW television, while doing several talked-about media interviews that stirred things up with wrestlers from both WCW and WWF locker rooms during the week on the state of the company, as after saying that guys like Kidman couldn't headline a flea market, Hogan said that a lot of the wrestlers today forgot who paved the way for them to sign big-money contracts, signaling the Radicals group and the rest who asked for their release, saying that they turned into marks for the business who think they will make big money just because they signed with McMahon. With Barry Saturn responding on his website saying that Hogan was once the man but is now a washed-up backstabber that is trying to hold down anyone who gets near his spot, naming Scott Steiner and Chris Benoit, saying that Steiner should have got the belt when he got hot last year but instead never got a shot, saying that Rock and Foley have 10 times the talent and are 10 times more down to earth than Hogan, who was always in his own locker room and never exchanged a word with most of the roster. With Hogan, when asked about the Saturn comments on Friday, dismissing it, saying that Saturn so far did well to con promoters into paying him in his career and is now gonna have a tough run in the WWF, while also commenting for the first time on the short-term revival of the NWO in December, saying that guys like Bret Hart and Jeff Jarrett don't fit the group's attitude and he will pick a different crew if trying to get the group back together. After last week's biggest viewership in months, with the company hoping to carry over some of the audience to this Monday, Nitro stayed steady throughout the first hour, opening and ending with a 3.2 rating, announcing the main event of the night in the opening minutes, with Luger and Hogan setting up the Super Brawl rematch in a last man standing cage match, closing the unopposed hour with a Flair and Luger promo hyping the match, while crossing over 9 p.m. with a Funk and Rose vs. Harris Brothers tag match going 6 minutes, leading to Nitro starting with its lowest first quarter in the month, 2.3 rating. After a week out of its regular time slot starting 2 hours later, Raw was back at 9 p.m. with its second show from the Georgia Dome after making its debut in WCW's home base of Atlanta back in October, coming in front of another huge crowd of over 28,000, taking over what was once Nitro's most famous venue, with WCW the last time in Atlanta booking the new Phillips Arena instead. Starting with the DX bus entering the parking lot and going straight to the ring, with the stadium exploding moments later, with them interrupted by Rock, saying that there's starting to be a pattern to every show lately, with Hunter cutting long drawn-out promos, starting a classic Triple H voice impersonation to a huge reaction, saying that every week he comes out and talks for 20 minutes without saying anything, followed by Hunter responding that it's gonna be a DX night with the entire group taking on Rock, before being interrupted by Cactus Jack, hyping the Hell in a Cell match at No Way Out in 6 days, with Foley building major intrigue, promising to go up and jump from the top of the cage, bringing out Kane and then Big Show to set up the main event for tonight, with a 6-man Rock Foley Kane vs. Hunter show and X-Pac tag match, with all the top 3 matches for the pay-per-view against each other, opening Raw with a 5.7 rating. After the lower-than-usual start, Nitro took 2 commercial breaks and dropped further to a show low 2 rating for a quarter, featuring Seed's follow-up promo after retaining the belt in the main event 3-way last night against Hall and Jarrett, setting up the title match against Jarrett at Uncensored, along with a Bagwell vs Maestro match going 2 minutes, while at the same time Raw jumped over 400,000 viewers to a 5.9 rating for the ending of the opening segment, and a Kurt Angle and Bulldog vs Jericho and Chyna tag match going 3 minutes. With Hogan's radio interview making headlines in both companies, Triple H was on the same show a few days earlier taking shots at the top WCW headliners, saying that he thinks Bill Goldberg is a prima donna flash in the pan who sits out every time he doesn't get his way, and questioning if Vince would hire him if he was out of WCW, while saying that he thinks it's time for both Hogan and Flair to retire, in addition to being asked about injuries to Austin, Taker and Foley helping his career with him bumped to a much more featured role than he was originally set for, saying that he doesn't see it that way, but it opened a door for him and he was ready to take the opportunity, similarly to when Austin as the ringmaster did in 1996. With Nash off television with a leg injury, the other half of the Outsiders and Scott Hall, who headlined last night's pay-per-view, was hospitalized for the night following the event with a neck injury, made worse with him taking a Jarrett guitar shot and a seed powerbomb back-to-back for the finish, laying in the ring for 30 minutes after the show went off the air until being stretchered out to a local hospital, with Hall already having issues with management, in particular Bill Bush and Terry Taylor, following the tour in Germany to put his future in the company in question. Nitro's final quarter opened with a Hogan interview hyping the Luger main event coming up next, with Flair and Luger attacking Jimmy Hart backstage on the way to the ring to kick it off, as with WCW hoping that the larger-than-usual audience from last week will translate to higher consistent viewership. Nitro didn't gain any significant percentage of the Raw audience, with the head-to-head hour hovering around the 2 rating up until the main event, with the Hogan vs Luger cage match with Flair also at ringside seeing the show getting a significant viewership boost for the first time on the night, gaining throughout the 10-minute main event first to bump the final quarter into a show-high 2.7 rating. Raw, with a series of tag matches on the card tonight, closed out the first hour with the end of the Godfather and Brown vs Saturn and Malenko tag match and the start of an 8-man tag crossing over the top of the hour, staying at a 5.5 rating, while the Hogan vs Luger cage match head-to-head was picking up a big at the same time. The Hogan-Luger-Flair cage match crossed 2 minutes into the overrun, jumping big with over 1.8 million viewers in total to peak at a 3.8 rating, far above anything else on the show either in the unopposed or head-to-head hour, going off the air earlier than usual at 10:02 p.m. with Raw getting almost the full top of the hour quarter unopposed, picking up over 800,000 viewers to enter the 6 rating range for the first time on the night, with the second half of the 8-man Edge and Christian Hardy's Dudleys Outlaws tag match going 8 minutes, along with another 6-man tag of the Acolytes and Mark Henry against the Hollies and Viscera. After the initial bump for the top of the hour segment, Nitro going off the air had no effect on Raw, as the show dropped to a 5.6 rating in the next 15 minutes before jumping back into the 6 rating range in the following quarter, featuring 2 matches of Chris Benoit against Test and a promoted Eddie Guerrero vs Rikishi match, with both carrying injuries, ending in a Radicals vs Too Cool brawl. With Mick Foley all but publicly announcing his retirement in November '99 before staying a few more months due to Austin's injury, Foley recapped his career and the effect his style of work had on his life, particularly perhaps his 2 most memorable matches in the Taker Hell in a Cell and the Rock I Quit matches on an ABC show, talking about the sacrifice he had to make mentally and physically to get to his position today, with Vince McMahon criticizing the piece, saying that it was a negative portrayal of Foley, more fitting to an independent wrestler than a major player on one of the most watched shows on television like Foley is, with Foley in a show hyped as possibly his final Raw as a wrestler, hyping the career Hell in a Cell match, saying that he's going to fly off the top of the cage and do the one thing left for him to do and headline WrestleMania, even if he needs a walker to do it. With the unopposed Nitro and late Raw last week drawing a 3.6 and 4.3 ratings with over 4 and 5 million viewers respectively, the WWF's biggest major show of the week came the previous Thursday, with SmackDown breaking all viewership records, with the show almost outdrawing the combined Nitro and Raw audience from Monday night, drawing over 8.3 million viewers for a loaded card featuring all the top names and high-profile matches throughout the night, with Raw this week looking to regain lost momentum from the previous Monday, when traditionally it takes shows several weeks to get the full audience back into the viewing habit. Raw's 6-man tag main event 29 minutes in front of a hot 30,000 crowd at the Georgia Dome to jump over 1.3 million viewers to a 6.3 final quarter and a peak 7.1 rating in the 6-minute overrun, ending in a wild brawl all over the stadium, with Hunter bailing out to the parking lot before Mick Foley smashed the DX bus in the go-home segment to No Way Out.